Okay, so welcome to the waste sorting webinar. I'm Lauren Clark. I'm the Energy Projects Coordinator with EOS Eco Energy. For those who don't know, EOS is a nonprofit an organization in Sackville, New Brunswick, and we do everything from promote renewable energy to climate change awareness to water quality testing in local watersheds. And I'm super excited. This is our 9th Climate Change Week. And I'm super excited to have Patrick here from Eco360 to give us a presentation on waste sorting. So I'd like to introduce Patrick to everybody.
Hi guys. So, all right, so we'll get starting on this. Eco360. Well, let's do a quick intro on this. For most of you guys, you call us up and we're basically the AKA dump or the landfill. That's what we usually get. So, but we do more than just dump or basically landfill garbage. Eco360 is responsible for sorting waste, composting, and landfill. And we operate the mobile eco depot. We generate our own electricity on site, and obviously we educate on the subject. I hear some ding dongs. That means more people, or yeah, okay, cool. So basically, what I'm gonna talk about today is basically what happens to waste that you throw away in the trash can. What happens to a plastic bottle when I put it in? For most of us, it's out of sight, out of mind, kind of the idea. And you're not wrong. I mean, it's true. And what I usually kind of ask on this quick animation, I don't know how fast it was on your computers, but I usually say, did you see what was the bag in the trash can? And then everyone goes say, oh, it's blue, it's clear, and it's green, and so on. And the reality is, it's a trick question. There's no bag in the trash can. And the reason why I ask that is that basically, when you do toss away something, you do take a minute to look at what is the bag and what am I supposed to put in it. And now, how is it that going to affect the long-term run? Like if I put my plastic bottle in the blue bag, yes, hopefully it's going to be recycled into a new bottle. But if you put that in the green bag, what happens? If you put that in the clear bag, does that have a negative impact, and so on? So that's what kind of we're going to talk about today, and how how things are managed at our facilities in Eco360. So if I had a green bag, and again, green bags are meant for, I guess, the most simplest materials, food scraps and yard waste. So both materials are easily composted. When I say composted, it's to turn into basically, like you all know, compost, which is basically a rich soil. So if I had to toss my plastic bottle in the green bag, obviously, if we look at the four items, it is not supposed to be there. But again, because in our compost facility, we don't have anybody sorting the materials by hand. It's all done mechanically, sorry. Everything is done. We add water, we push air, we add we add bacteria that are into the compost, and then bacteria eat the food and turns it into what we call the compost. And then that's done all indoors. And then we have what we call a tiller that tills all the materials and shreds it. And anything that is, again, like a plastic bottle that is not supposed to be there would be shredded as well. And then that's where we have an issue, is that the materials that can't be composted get shredded in the compost, and then you're stuck with something that you wouldn't use in your garden or you wouldn't use in your flower bed. And then that is used for alternate uses at our site. Our goal is to keep our green as clean as possible so that we can create what we call a grade A compost. Luckily now, we are producing grade A compost, which is a plus for us. And we are marketing our material as a bulk purchase. So that's a plus for for something that it's been in the works for a few years, so that we're quite happy. Um, if I continue kind of my same story at the beginning, if my trash can had a clear bag, we would see basically materials that are not supposed to be recyclable or composted. So obviously diapers would be one of those that can go into clear, broken toys, anything that is not donatable. Chip bags is one of those that I wish I had, like, a chip bag with me. So you would see the inside portion of it that's kind of a foily, shiny feel to it, and then the outside is kind of a plastic feel. And so the reason why chip bags are nuclear is that you can't separate those two parts. Again, maybe there is a 10-year-old kid that's going to figure out how to do that. But for now, there is no market for those chip bags, granola bar wrappers, or even chocolate bar wrappers and so on. So all these materials would be clear for sure. Um, Pet waste is one of those that is basically garbage in the clear, or also when we were discussing at the beginning of the presentation, could go also in the green because it is compostable. But we encourage to put it in the clear or in the green. Clothing that is not donatable, so that's one more that should be in the clear bag. You got hygiene waste, which is one of those that is anything from your toothbrush, your dental floss, your toothpaste tube, Q-tips, so on. All these materials that are from the washroom should be in the clear. We used to have in the old wet and dry program, we used to have basically green in our washrooms, and the reality of it was all contamination. So we encourage you to put in the clear. And if you have a toilet paper roll or the empty shampoo bottle, then yes, do put that in the blue bag, but in majority, that would be clear. And again, if you had a clear bag in the trash can and you would put your plastic bottle, all these materials are destined for, again, the dump, or also called the landfill. So the landfill basically is very simple. It's a huge bathtub for your garbage. So we have a liner dug into the ground, and we dispose of all your materials in this bathtub. And it creates two substances that's very harmful for the environment. And one is the methane, which is a gas, or the garbage gas, and that is sent to our generator to be burnt into what we call a carbon equivalency. So basically, it turns into something that's very less harmful for the environment. And that generates a megawatt of electricity for our NB network. Um, then we have what we call the garbage juice, also known as the leachate, is actually the proper term. I like the garbage juice, way simpler. We have bacteria in this liquid that basically eats the harmful stuff in it, and then we push air into this liquid so that the bacteria have oxygen to eat all that nasty stuff in it. And that is sent to the Greater Moncton Sewage Commission, and afterwards it's further treated along the steps. So all of this is done so that our environment is clean and then our environment is protected. We don't have garbage all over the place, because in 1980, in the 80s, basically, we had close to 300 dumps in New Brunswick. So basically, and maybe some of you guys in the audience, basically, you're familiar with your own local dump. We had those everywhere. We had one in Moncton, basically next to the Petitcodiac River. So they were everywhere, and maybe not well thought out because, again, next to a riverbed or next to a forest or so on. So they were very well. They weren't very well thought out. So to give you an idea of how big is a landfill, so a landfill is, to give you an idea, is like 2 times the length of a soccer field. So it's 240 meters in length. And then we stack 50-meter high of garbage, which is basically the equivalency of a 3-story building. So that's kind of the idea. That in our region fills up in 2 years. Okay, so all the black, the black membrane here that we see is one bathtub. This is our 15th. That's an old picture. We're already at our 17th. We have like we're over here already. And since 1992, we opened our first one, and this was the green line here that we see. So we have 1.4 kilometers of these landfill cells that we'd already filled up and topped off, and they're closed. So just to give you an idea, materials here stay forever, sorry. And we can do way better by reducing the amount of waste that we put in here. And so that way we can keep maybe one of these for 3 or 4 or 5 years, hopefully. Because this land is not utilized except for just garbage. So the same plastic bottle obviously can be managed differently. So again, okay, I have 3 R's, and probably some of you guys think, well, okay, there's 3, there's 4, there's 5, there's people that are inventing 6 R's. I've seen all of them. I keep to the basic ones because they're quite to the point. So, and I'm sure that you all know them. By reducing is one of the first steps to all of this, is reducing. The best garbage is the garbage that's not produced, And so by reducing the amount of plastic or the amount of waste you're creating, the best. Nose hair too. And so the best way is to, if you go to the grocery stores, bring your reusable bags, and that way you don't generate more waste. That by reducing is the best. Same plastic bottle could be reused. I mean, it could be a craft. It could be just reusing it for more water or so on. It can be reused quite often. And then the very last one, if at the end of its life, the best thing would be to be recycled. And so by recycling, obviously we don't just recycle plastic bottles at Eco 360. We recycle way more than that. So one of the materials is paper. We have also cardboard, metal and aluminum. We have milk and juice cartons, plastic bottles, obviously. And with plastic containers, a cool trick with that is that there is these little numbers here. So from 1 to 7, and they're all circle with a triangle of arrows. And these triangles basically dictates what types of plastic that was used to make this container or this bottle. So all these materials here from 1 to 7, out of these 7, there's only one that we are not able to recycle, and then that is number 6. And so that would be the one that only goes in the clear, and the rest of them can go in the blue bag. And a good trick also, and this is kind of since we're in the topic, if you find a plastic, like you're picking up, I'm thinking like a battery pack of double A's, and the little plastic bubble wrap that goes up on top of it, that plastic doesn't have a number. You can look way over all over the place and you won't find one. If you can't find one, then that means that's a plastic that for us is not recyclable. And the reason why is that we can't separate it through these numbers so that we can send it to somebody that will recycle them. So that would be another one that wouldn't be recyclable. So no numbers, or 6 don't mix. Two little tricks. And then the other thing is styrofoam is one that actually we're quite proud. We're the only one in New Brunswick that do recycle styrofoam. So that's one that goes in the blue bag. And small electronics, maybe not your 40-inch TV, but small electronics and without batteries can go in the blue bag. So all these materials are sorted throughout our plant. So we have 6 cabins like these and about 30 employees sorting your blue bags by hand and mechanically helped also. We have magnets and we have shakers and so on. And so they're sorted in these different categories, and they go into these chutes and then afterwards in these big container set underneath these platforms. And then once it's all sorted out, it goes to what we call the baler, and it makes these bales of recyclable. These bales weigh about half a ton each, and so those will fill up a 7 to 8 trailers of 18 wheelers every week, full of these cubes of recyclable. And then they're destined to be recycled to new markets, to be transformed into new boxes or new bottles or so on. Now, sorry. Now we have a plastic bottle, but it has full of oil. In this case, and then I would ask the crowd again, or the audience, what would you do with this? And I hope in your mind here, you all said, yeah, no, that doesn't go in the trash can. All of the what we call hazardous waste, either from oil, paint, batteries, aerosol cans, propane tanks, so on, anything that has basically a little skeleton on it or a little explosive sign is hazardous waste. And so these hazardous waste are meant to be brought to either our mobile eco depot, or you can bring it to our permanent depot at the facility at Eco 360. So now I'm gonna take a pause here and actually just kind of open the, I guess, anybody that has questions or wants to kind of say something about what I've just spoke of. And I got a few more slides afterwards if ever that there's more interest in this, what we do at Eco 360.
Thanks so much, Patrick. Yeah, I don't know if you folks are able to unmute yourselves. I think so, or if you want to type a question into the chat box. I know I have a bunch of questions, and I have some items that I brought that sometimes I'm not sure where to put. But for sure, if folks that have come to the webinar have questions or comments or things that they do, please feel free to go ahead. I'm just going to double check and make sure that that I've made that possible.
A feature we can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, questions can be about the presentation, and questions can be just about Eco 360, what we do, how are you guys, like anything that troubles you or anything that I question, or where this, if you have a huge pause or an argument between couples about, you know, what goes where, this is the time.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Clearly, I can unmute myself.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good.
So I know, because I've been at the facility, Patrick, that you guys really do a terrific job with all the sorting that you do.
Yeah.
But I do feel that since only maybe 30% of the total waste that comes into your facility is sorted at all to start with, that has got to be one of the biggest places where there could be a huge improvement.
Yes, definitely.
So is there any work happening to start having businesses and apartment dwellers actually recycle and sort their garbage?
Yeah, that's a good question. And again, with this, and I'm gonna try to explain it the best I can. Basically, with waste, so we'll go out, like you go out, like say in the, let's say Sackville area, and you see these big dumpsters or these big bins, and you see them behind buildings, and most of them will have like either 2 bins or sometimes even 3 bins, so on. And you'll see most of them seeing like a big huge bin for cardboard or one big bin for, I don't know, plastic and so on. And so all these separate bins, they do not come to our facilities. So that's one of the portion of the materials that when we say 30%, 70%, maybe the 70% of what we call what ICI, which is our industrial, commercial, institutional sector, which includes also apartments, is kind of the bigger portion of the pie for sure. But again, there is a lot of materials that do we have a lot of companies that do recycle properly. Like if you take as example the mall in Moncton, they have 3-stream sorting. So there is initiative in companies that do participate, but there is a lot of materials that we don't even see to our facility. So for cardboard, for example, a company that offers pickup of cardboard will take that cardboard and bring it to their facility, pack it up, and then sell it. So it's kind of an incentive of having a separate bin for it. So we don't see that material coming in. So in our diversion rates, we don't necessarily see that number. So that's one of the things. And the other portion of it, so your other blue materials or your green materials, we are working with a few companies that are willing to approach us and say, hey, we want to do more for our business and so on. And we are involved with a few companies. I must say, maybe not as much as we wish, but as a non-mandatory program for the businesses. That's kind of the approach that's being dealt with now. We are just kind of like, anybody that wants to do more, we are here to help and again, spread the word. So yeah, we're always there for that. So I agree. And like when we said the whole landfill fills up in 2 years, that's the majority of commercial users, and they pay for it. But I mean, we could definitely divert more materials. And when I use divert as kind of a term used in waste management, it's basically to take a material and give it a second life, or so to either compost it or recycle it in some kind of way. I hope it kind of answered your questions, but I think it's a good comment also that we are always receiving, because as Eco360, it's important to always look at this next step. And I think the next step would be probably apartments, where I'm a resident of house, I'm doing the sorting, but as an apartment resident, I'm not obligated to do it. So that's where we're kind of looking at the logistics of it, and we're always trying to see how to roll out the whole thing. Because again, if you have 100, someone in Moncton have 100 units, how do you pinpoint? Oh well, you didn't do it right, and you spoil the whole pot. So that's how we're kind of thinking. How are we gonna? I guess we don't want to fall in all on the landlord, and then the landlord kind of steps in and says to the tenant, you're not doing it right, and then it just becomes a mess. We want to have a solid plan for our apartment owners as well. So it's kind of, we're trying to rolling out something and something that it's been in the works for a few years for sure. Yeah. I see a lot of questions as well in the chat.
Yeah, do you want me to read them out just so everybody can see them? So Dave and Shelley Bailey were wondering, they said some styrofoam trays have a 6 on them. Do they still go in the blue bag?
Yeah, it's a good, this is I'm French, and you can probably say from my accent, it's like a French exception, and there's a lot in French. So in number 6 is when you look in the, let me just pull out my presentation. And I want to share it. Easier to show. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so 6 is one of those that's PS, so polystyrene, which is styrofoam. But the whole trick out of it is that there is 2 types of number 6. There's a PS and then there is a EPS. And sometimes it's not marketed as an EPS, but when we look at styrofoam, anything that has that kind of that bubble kind of shape molding product, number 6 would be a EPS styrofoam. In the case of a PS only, we're looking more at a plastic that is like the lid of a coffee cup, a straw, a plastic utensil, or you're looking at a yogurt cup. So all these materials would be PS only. But in the case of styrofoam, that would be EPS. So all styrofoam would be recyclable. For some reason, the only difference is that basically, as soon as you have a expanded polystyrene, is that anything that's been added air to the plastic and then make that shape or that molding shape, so that makes it recyclable. Don't ask me why, but that's how it is.
So just to recap, if there's styrofoam and it has number 6 on it,
still recyclable.
Blue or okay.
Blue, yeah.
Cool. But if it's not styrofoam and it has 6, clear.
Sure, clear. Yeah. Yeah. I think that was clear.
That's right. You mentioned coffee cups or coffee cup lids. I have one here. And my question is, it says compostable, but it also has the number 7 on it. So I'm wondering what to do in this case.
I think the industry is as mixed as everyone else. So basically with a compostable plastic, okay? And I seen 7 and I thought you would have said 1 because I've seen a lot of them, but it would be clear. It'd be a clear plastic, not a white plastic.
Yeah, it says PLA underneath.
PLA, yeah, okay.
I think it's
7. No, that makes sense. 7 is kind of the other category. So anything that is, and this is kind of a more in-depth question. So basically anything that has a compostable plastic that is recyclable is not recyclable and it's not compostable. So it's a marketing scheme.
Oh no.
Yes, and the reason why is that, and so the 2 outcomes. So if it ends up in the green, it is compostable, but not in the 120. So it takes 120 days to compost something that is plastic, like compostable plastic or biodegradable plastic. So our facilities take about 40 days to digest anything from food or leaves or like, stuff like that. But it doesn't spend enough time so that the material like compostable plastic ends up to be composted. So it ends up being screened into the second portion of our process, and then that ends up to the landfill. So that's option A, and then option B is the compostable plastic. If you put it in the blue, there's no market for a compostable plastic since it's not plastic only. It has a bio portion of it, so it's either corn stalks or and so on, or different types of other organic materials. So those would be making it not recyclable. So womp on that, because I find that like when I suggest, and there is a lot of companies kind of like looking at different alternatives on packaging, and I find that this compostable plastic or compostable product is kind of a false advertisement, because it looks good, oh yeah, I'm buying something compostable. Yes, you are, but how is it dealt out of your local facility? That's another situation. If you're burning your waste, then sure, whatever, but anyways, yeah, it's a good one.
Okay, good to know. Does anyone else, we can keep going down the comments. I just wondered if anyone else wanted to jump in and turn on their camera or mic and say. So the next question that I saw that I also have a prop for that I was wondering is cans. So my question is cans, but also sometimes this part is, it depends on how you take the lid off. Sometimes this part is sharp and sometimes this part is sharp. And so I'm wondering, do they go in blue even though like
They're
it's
sharp.
kind of
Yeah.
sharp, because sometimes I think, well, if this is not sharp, I'll put this in blue, and then to like protect the people that are sorting stuff, I'll put this in clear. But what's the, yeah, what do you
So
recommend?
basically, our facility is actually, everything is dealt by magnets. So we have a ferrous and a non-ferrous magnet. So one basically for those cans would be magnets that are pulling out the metal, and we wouldn't even touch the can. So doesn't matter. And then the other portion is a non-ferrous metal, so aluminum or tin cans, tin tin crust, which are aluminum, would basically, so it's like it's putting a charge like positive, and then a magnet that's positive, and then they repulse itself. So that's how kind of they separate the bolt materials. So that's kind of a neat process, because we don't even touch anything that would be potentially harmful for our employees.
That's great. That's really good to know. Okay, awesome.
I see that there's a lot of questions here. If you want to go through them.
Yeah, for sure.
I
know someone asked about parchment paper.
Okay. Parchment paper is one of those that's kind of like, it's paper, but it's wax and so on. So it is clear, unfortunately.
Clear? Okay, garbage.
Yeah.
Ice cream cartons.
Those are actually blue. Lids, tubs and lids, either they're cardboard or they're plastic. They're both recyclable. Yeah.
Awesome. Blue.
It's kind of the same. Like if you went to McDonald's, it's like that same cardboard for the fountain drinks. They're kind of the same cardboard-ish feel. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, because I wondered about that, because it seemed like plasticky on the outside and sort of cardboardy on the inside. So I wondered if it would be okay in blue, but that's good to know.
It's the what we call the rip test. So basically, if you can rip your cup or rip your so on, it is recyclable.
Okay.
If it's like if for some of you guys, if you have pets and you have that thick plastic and paper bag and you can't rip it, then that means that would be garbage.
Okay, like pet food.
Cats or dogs. Yeah.
Okay.
Pet food, yeah.
Gotcha.
You see that a lot in those marketing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So there's a really good question here about the Wheaton's all-in-one in Sackville that will take bottles, batteries, pop cans, cardboard. Someone's wondering if there's any advantage to taking those things there as opposed to putting them in the curb, on the curb, by the curb.
Battery. What else? Sorry. Battery.
Sorry, I said that kind of fast. Pop cans, bottles. Yeah. Cardboard.
Okay. So cardboard, if I'm not mistaken, we're the ones that are picking up your cardboard at Wheaton's.
Okay.
So it comes to both the same place.
Okay.
Either or, they'll be recycled. Whether if it's not us, they'll be recycled for sure. There is a market for it, so there's a money aspect to it if you have enough. Batteries, again, we are the ones picking them up. And again, hazardous waste. Batteries are included as hazardous waste, so you can bring them in at the curbside or so on. So you either bring it there or you bring it to our mobile depot or at our facility if you want to go for the drive.
For sure. I know that there were questions about plastic bags, and I know that there's lots of kinds of plastic bags. This is not really a plastic bag. I think it's more of a plastic wrapper. Like there were crackers that came in it. But I'm wondering just about plastic bags, I guess, just because someone pointed out, they don't have numbers on them, so it's sometimes hard to tell. I know you have a trick for this, I think.
Yeah, exactly. The cool trick about those is that basically anything that, like, if you want to show it again, if it's sealed on both ends, so it's been vacuum sealed, those would be what we call garbage. But if if it's a bag, like a Ziploc bag or a grocery bag or shopping bag, so on, those are recyclable. The only It is hard, and it is hard to market, and it's part of the reason why it's so hard to market these plastic bags is that there's so many bags that are so similar, but again, not similar. So those, and again, you can hear it by the microphone, is that it's crinkly. Anything that is crinkly, like if you look at like if you take a frozen vegetable bags, they're crinkly, compared to a grocery bag that you went to the independent store, and they're really soft to the touch. So again, we're trying to educate the public that the materials that are similar are okay to be in the booth, and that's how we market it. The plastic bags. Um, that's the way. And again, we only ask the public to do their best. Like with the knowledge they have, all the bags they go in the blue bag, and we do have 30 employees sorting your blue bags. It does help if you are, stepping up your game at home, and then it makes it easier to the facility to sort the materials and to recover more materials and make it easier to process and faster and so on. So definitely, if you can do that extra step, that helps.
For sure. Someone was wondering, how long would it take an old dump area, they said like the one on Landing Road in Sackville, to become sterile enough to be used for other purposes? I'm not sure if you know about that in general.
In general, I must say, a landfill, and these are signs that not a lot of people have yet, because I mean, the oldest dumps are like from the 80s, so it's not a lot of times to actually have, like, if you think about like a plastic bottle, it takes about 400 years to deteriorate. So I'm not going to be here to figure out, like if it's gone or not. So, but I do know that a landfill after 20, 25 years, give or take, starts to create very little landfill gas. And I mean, they do produce still a bit of gas, but they don't produce as much methane. So, which is I guess, the good part of it. Leachate, we will see a little bit um, of it, but still, again, a little bit less, because what happens is that leachate and gas is usually in bigger portion produced by either um, something that deteriorates fast, so like food, or like materials that will deteriorate faster, and so that's what produces a lot of our gas and our leachate. And back in the days, I mean, everything went. So whether it was oil, if it was a car, like I heard some crazy stories, and so it was everything. So it's a bit hard to say because they weren't monitored as well. So a bit hard to say. I actually don't have much details on much of that. And again, we have on our staff, we have a doctor in landfills, and even him doesn't have a straight answer. So I wouldn't know who would have that answer.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but it is used sometimes as like a four-wheeler trail that's safe, like you're just rolling on top. But I wouldn't put my house on the top of the landfill.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's reminding me, because we talked about methane, or you mentioned methane and how it's captured. Do you guys have an idea of the amount of methane that you're able to capture? And sort of where do you decide to put in the sort of pipes where the gas is coming from? Like, sort of how does that work? And do you know the amount you're able to capture, or like how does that work?
So yeah, so kind of to relate it to the other question is, a landfill cell, and this is kind of at our site, produces about 20 to 25 years of gas. Again, with quantities, I think even if I told the numbers, it wouldn't make sense. But basically, think about as a landfill cell as a big balloon filled up with gas, and it's just slowly deflating. Okay, and once it's fully deflated, it doesn't create much gas. It must, it will produce a bit of CH4, not CH4, but oxygen and CO2 and stuff like that. But mostly just, inert material, inert gas. So on. So if you have 16 cells and you started in 1992, like every 2 years we build one, our cells will produce gas, it overlaps, eh? So that's one of the things that we have noticed. And so our generator, which produces enough electricity for about 700 houses, which is a plus for us in our region. And we're already looking either at our second generator or some kind of converting the gas into some kind of other energy or byproduct or so on. So every let's say so many years, I don't have the specific numbers because it depends on the operations and how fast we fill the landfill cells. We try to combine, so our last drilling of wells, so at the end of once the landfill is capped off, we drill these wells, so they're big pipes that are going into the landfill and they capture the gas. But to do that efficiently, it's company from out in Quebec or Ontario come here. We try to do a few cells. So it takes a few years before we cap off and then we put the wells in. So to make it a bit efficient. Basically, when we have like 3 or 4 landfill cells that are full and they're capped off, then we put the wells in. So, and again, with the big balloon all filled up, if you look at all of our landfill cells, the present cells have more gas that they can, actually, so the bubble doesn't really go down at the moment because we have more gas than the generator can actually burn. So it just stays in the bubble, sealed in there. So that's why we're looking at our second generator, or potentially some kind of like either converted into a natural gas or so on. So, or gassing up cars. I don't know. Anyway, some kind of technology.
Yeah, that's really cool for sure. But so do you think the landfill cells that are hooked up to the generator, is it like 100% of the methane being like captured?
Captured
from those cells? No. Okay.
No. There is still that. It's kind of why that we encourage that. And the big culprit of all of this methane gas is organic materials. So again, if you think about like, oh, okay, it's just like, a bit of scrape of food in the clear, or if it's a business or a restaurant that is not participating, and then that goes all the way to the landfill, and that's where we see a lot of organics, and that's where we want to reduce it. So to answer your question, no, it doesn't capture everything, because what happens is that it's capped off with sand, gravel, clay, and then hydroseeded with topsoil. So it's not 100% sealed in. So that's why we tell people that it's important to reduce the amount of organics, especially in the landfill.
For sure. Yep. No, that makes sense.
But the percentage is quite minimal, for sure.
Okay. So it just seeps up through the ground, or?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes what happens is that if, let's say, there would be, for some reason, one of the weirdest thing, and that is why we don't have tires in the landfill, tires float. They float in the landfill for some reason. No, and it is weird. They kind of percolate to the top for some reason. And so that's why we try to remove all the tires in the landfill. And again, everything to make sure that the landfill is as sealed as possible.
Okay. I didn't realize that. Okay. Someone wondered about toothbrushes because you were talking about toothbrushes that go in the
Okay.
garbage, and they wondered about a bamboo toothbrush.
Okay, so that's kind of the trick question, as the same as the compostable plastic.
Oh no.
Yes, it is. And again, when I'm talking about pros and cons about anything, and this is the same thing with the whole no plastic bags at the grocery stores. It's the same way. There's, and I'm a strong believer of in an environment. There is nothing perfect. Okay, there is nothing. And a bamboo toothbrush or a bamboo spoon or a bamboo whatever you think this is the next thing and this is good. Um, it has its pros and it has its cons, for sure. So the first one is that, like, yes, it is compostable or biodegrade faster than a plastic one. Uh, but if you do put it in the green bag, we have what we call a trommel. So trommel is a fancy term, basically, for those that have been to our facility. It's a huge dryer cylinder, and it has holes about the size of a tennis ball. And so, yeah, anyways. And so basically, the toothbrush basically wouldn't fall in the hole. So then that means that um, it would be screened, and then that would be sent to the landfill. Same thing with the bag. I think I seen one of the question about compostable bags. Same thing. Either if it's a plastic bag or a compostable bag or compostable toothbrush, compostable cup or lid, or even if you had like those orange crates and you thought, oh, this is wood, it's gonna be good for our compost. It is good, just doesn't make it in our compost. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, one of those. Uh, yeah, so those wouldn't be compostable because they don't make it to our compost silos, like the animation was showing. So those materials, you put in the clear bag, except sorry, the green bag and the compostable bag.
Okay.
The reason why is that it doesn't make it. So yes, and again, why am I? And this is probably one of your questions. Why am I buying compostable bags rather than green bag? Don't like. I mean, if you're for it, just don't stop. It's still good. And the reason why it's still good is that when it ends up to the landfill, it deteriorates faster than plastic that will stay for 400 years in the landfill. So it is better. Yeah, it just not what you thought it would do, maybe.
Yeah, no, for sure. Fair enough. I know there's a lot of folks, myself included, that wish that there was more composting available in like apartments and with restaurants and stuff like that. I know that on the Eco360 website, I was looking at it and there was something about the switch to the 3-bag system where you introduce the third bag for garbage. There was the hope that that would allow, because I think it said that there wasn't enough capacity basically to deal with waste from like restaurants and apartment buildings, so that the introduction of the third bag for garbage, they were hoping that they would be able to free up some space to accommodate that. And I'm just wondering if that's the case now, or if it's sort of in the middle, and like if there's something folks could do to help out with that. Or
Definitely. You have a good memory. So, and I think it was key messages in 2016, I think, when we just started off, or 2017. So, anyways, point is, yes, it is. So basically, when we went from 2-stream to 3-stream, our capacity, basically, we had clear bag materials going through the recycling facility, making it so hard to recycle materials, and also overflowing, with materials. So by taking the portion of basically a third of the waste from the blue bag going directly to the landfill allowed us for more capacity, more materials coming in. So that's more space for industrial waste, which would be recyclable or compostable. So yes, definitely, we are, we're ready for more ways from the industrial, commercial, institutional side of it.
Okay.
And what I would encourage, because again, this is kind of this is our dilemma for us as well, because we answer to municipalities. So we have 15 municipalities that basically, and 4 local service districts that we answer to. And so then they turn around and they have what we call bylaws. So there's a bylaw that stipulates that basically you got to set, if you have a house, you got to set your bags at a certain time and certain bags and the alternating schedule and so on. So it's kind of a rule. And so for apartments, that's not a rule. So it's like it comes to the landlord or the owner of the building or so on to take upon that his homework to do his sorting or get his tenants to sort. The other way we can kind of like for Eco 360 is to encourage either Lauren or who else wants to get involved in that, is to kind of like pressure our superiors that are owners or landlords to do, hey, we should be doing this. This is good for the environment and so on. And what we're trying to do is also, without doing a mandatory technique, is to do a more of a passive technique where we increase every year the price in the landfill, and we either reduce or keep the price of recycling and composting lower. So for now, for example, if I'm not mistaken, I think landfill is $119 a ton. And if I'm not mistaken, blue and green is $65 a ton. And again, don't quote me on this. It's been a while. I haven't gone to the site to pay actually garbage because I just set it at the curbside. But so basically, these prices and our prices are on our website. And so those differential tipping fees are there to increase every year, so that it can, and it says to the landlord, well, if you're not sorting, you're going to pay way more than somebody that sorts. So that increase now is kind of like at the line where it's like, it's not necessarily, hurting my wallet yet, but it is getting there. And it's how we're going to kind of, roll out the whole, like, okay, this is more expensive, this is cheaper. Why are you not doing it? So we're kind of working on this end of what we have a control on, and we are working with the municipalities to some kind of legislation that would say basically apartment owners should be sorting, and businesses and so on. So we're kind of looking at that as well. But again, it has to come also from either the tenants or from the clients and so on. So it has to come from both ends to get a bit of pressure there.
For sure. Yeah, no, makes sense. I just have a couple more specific questions about items, if that's okay, but
Yep.
folks, feel free to jump in. We just have a couple minutes left. A pizza box. Does it depend, and this sort of ties into another question I have, does it depend how much
Grease?
Yeah, like how do you know whether or not it counts as cardboard, or whether it's just totally not, or are they never an option?
Never an option. It's always
Never.
blue. Always blue.
Always blue. So
yeah,
you can
always
always recycle it even if there's a lot of grease. Is that what?
Exactly. So in our big cube of recyclables, it weighs half a ton. You get 5% contamination. So that's kind of our threshold. So piece of grease is in our 5%. So we're fine.
Okay.
And everything is like, in recycling, what's nice is that everything is either put in a process of high heat or put into a pulp, or like it's deteriorated a bit, like like a bit like. And I think I seen you pull out foil. Is that foil? Or yeah, exactly. A good nice lasagna that's crisp on the side and it's all thick, and it's like, or like if you ate a salmon and it's all crisp at the bottom. again, it's melted at something like 700 degrees Celsius or so on, whatever. So the organic portion disappears. So just fold it in and then put that in the blue bag.
Okay, yeah, to
yeah.
fold it. Because I know sometimes you just think like, oh man, is it worth it to wash this? Because I have to take so long washing it, and then the water you use to wash it, like, is it worth it? But okay, no, that's good to know. And I know you can just fold them anyway. Like if that was dirty on the inside, you just fold it, and then that's
Exactly.
okay. Because I knew about the heat. But okay, cool, that's good to know.
Yeah. And as long as there's nothing that kind of seeps on something else, you know, like if you have your half-eaten lasagna and you just squish it in there, then yeah, okay, maybe not. But just the crumbs or whatever,
Bits.
like that's
Yeah.
fine. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Um, you mentioned, what was I going to say? Batteries that go in hazardous waste. And I'm just wondering what happens to everything in hazardous waste? Like, what do you guys do with it? Or
Actually, it's mostly recycled.
oh,
It is
cool.
still recycling. It's just that it goes through under like process. It's just that it's handled so that it's safe. So batteries, if they corrode or whatever, it can cause a fire. So that's why we separate from the blue bag.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, definitely. But most of them get recycled for multitudes of materials. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Some of them are like medicine, I know, or needles are incinerated at high temperatures.
Okay.
Some other materials will be burnt. So like used oil, used gasoline, some of them will be used as furnace oil or so on, but it's reused in some kind of way. But most of them will be either recycled or repurposed. Yeah.
Okay. The last question I have, what do you guys do with like furniture and stuff that you receive, or like items that are still okay that could be donated, but like what happens to that stuff?
We are working very intensively, and this is kind of the hot topic on all of this, is because, like, again, the best way to look at all this is reducing, reusing, and the reusing is kind of our second R. So there is a company that is a nonprofit again in Moncton that is we're working closely with is Enviro System. Enviro Plus. Enviro Plus is basically a company that or organization that basically takes materials and like couches or chairs or so on and refurbishes them and sells them for a lower cost, and then that kind of operates their own nonprofit. And at the moment, there are with COVID and all this, they're presently not working, but there are a great organization. So that's one of them we're working on, and we're looking at our options as well. So that's something that is always on the go. It's just a question sometimes of like we don't want to start like a some kind of like depot and then accumulate too much and then it just piles up and then it ends up being no good for anybody. So, but there is other options. There is Habitat for Humanity that is one of those we are partnered as well for construction materials, or like if you have like an oil toilet or an old I don't know, like chair or so on, they'll take that as well. Um, who else? That's pretty much kind of the two main ones that for like furniture and stuff like that we're
Okay.
using. There is other organization like Nazaret, Salvation Army that takes certain materials like clothing or like for um, so on. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, no, I just wondered if you were partnered with any organizations like that, or if
Yeah.
you were planning to open up like a store or something, because I know that in the Valley in Nova Scotia, they have a store, or they did a couple of years ago, where they put things that came in that were still okay, but yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, we were looking at that actually, and I think they were open on a Saturday or something, and they just opened that on a Saturday, and it's like in lower cost, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
So we are, and that's kind of our end game maybe, because we have the what we call the our transfer station, our So basically, there's a ramp. So you go, if you've been to our facility, it goes on to a ramp, and then there's multiple bins, and that's how we try to divert as much materials as we can, including reusable furniture. You say the guy comes in there and he cleans out, a house or something. For some reason, they clean out a house, and there's full of furniture and good furniture. They just don't want them. We will set it aside if we can, definitely. So that's how we divert more materials, is that we have more staff introduced to this transfer station, and that's how we kind of leaning towards that. It's just having a logistics of like maybe having some kind of like designated area for it. For now, it's just going mostly to either Habitat for Humanity or Enviro Plus.
That's great. Awesome. Well, we're a couple minutes after 8. Does anyone else have any further questions? Or if not, I'll just wait a couple seconds.
Lauren,
Yeah.
I feel like there's quite a few questions in the chat that haven't been addressed yet. I don't know if you want to make a quick run, just a quick glance through to see what you've missed.
For sure. If no one else minds.
I see one here. Couldn't you compost parchment paper? I would put that in my backyard compost. Are they? Yeah. Actually, parchment paper is one of those we wouldn't put that in the green, again, because two reasons. Is one is the trommel, so it wouldn't pass through the screener, and then the second thing is that the parchment paper wouldn't compost in the 40 days that it spends. If you have a backyard compost, it might work. I mean, if it spends more time, I guess. But again, it is one of those materials that's quite tough to actually compost, because it does take a lot of heat. And again, not sure about the backyard composting or either our compost facility. I wouldn't put that in it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Do you
and it
see
makes
more
sense.
questions?
I mean, I did get to most of them. Someone asked about glass and dead light bulbs.
Okay.
Hazardous Waste Days Depot.
All of those can be brought to our mobile eco depot. We are in Sackville every 3 months, or in your region every month. So basically, you can bring your glass, and your glass is very important that it is separated in color and so all the color glass, so brown, green, or blue, or so on, goes into one pile, and then the other portion is clear, goes into the other portion in the other bin. And they need to be clean and without lids. And that's kind of what we ask. That's the only thing. I know there is some of the rules that are no Pyrex, no mirrors, no tempered glass. Some of those are because they don't have the same melting temperatures, so they're not allowed as in our program. But they're nice to be recycled at our mobile eco depot. And for broken light bulbs, if they're the spiral ones, those are hazardous waste. Definitely bringing them to our mobile eco depot. And but for the ones that are just the old incandescent ones, those are just regular garbage in the clear.
Okay, good to know. I think that's most of the questions. Sometimes I try to get them answered in sort of a general way, but I think that's all right. So thank you so much, Patrick, for your time and for answering all our questions. And this was really great.
Yeah, thank you. And again, with great questions, and that's kind of, and it's great to kind of question a little bit further than always like a bit like the compostable cup, where we think we're doing a great action, but we always have to think a little bit a step forward. And again, there's nothing perfect when I say that, because whether I'll give you the example of an apple, like I eat a lot of apples, and it's either you go biologic in French we say, which is
Organics.
Organics, yeah, that's what I was looking for. So you go in organic and it's good for the environment, but it comes from Africa. Is it better than the one that's local but it's been sprayed? Or like there's always something, right? So just kind of like do the best you can, and that's what we kind of encourage is do the best you can, make the best educated choices, and I mean we'll do fine.
All right, awesome.
Thanks.
No, that was great. Thanks so much, Patrick, and thanks everybody for attending. And have a great evening.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right.
See ya.
Take care, everybody. Bye.